Hello and welcome to another episode of Learning at Xaltem, our weekly webinar which we do from Xaltem Learning Solutions for our community. This is our share. This is also our opportunity to learn back from the community. Today I have a very interesting topic to discuss on, and I must credit one of my ex-colleagues who suggested this topic for me to take up in this webinar. Uh, So he said, Anindya, you have actually led different learning functions. You have created academies. So why don't you share what, according to you, are essential leadership qualities, attributes, which every learning leader should have to be successful in their roles? I said, I'm very happy to do that. It's a great thought. And so this list is curated from my own experience of what works, and more importantly, what didn't work for me, and also a few of my fellow learning leaders, which I have observed how they are very successful and what I think they're doing very well, which all of us could learn from. Okay, so let's get into this. I'm very excited to share this list with you, not only for learning leaders like me, more importantly, people who are getting into learning functions, who are aspiring to lead teams. I hope this adds value to all of you. So let me share a few slides which I have curated. Okay, give me a minute. Yeah, cool. Okay. So as I shared, our topic today is essential capabilities of effective learning leaders. When I was thinking about it, of this list of essential capabilities, I also realized that it would be a combination of certain leadership attributes and also functional skills which a learning leader should be having to be effective in their roles. Okay. So first, the leadership attributes. Now, these are not specifically related to learning leadership, but I strongly feel that these are the essential leadership attributes specifically for learning leaders to become successful in their roles. The first and foremost, I think, is a service orientation mindset in the leader. Now, you may say that service orientation is not necessarily just for learning leaders. You're absolutely right. Service orientation has been a topic of a discussion, even in leadership literature, has been for quite some time that leaders should have a service mindset and all. Now, why I have selected this attribute is the learning leader is leading an enabling function. They're not leading a line function. The learning function exists to serve the line or the function which it is serving and all that. And at all times, every learning practitioner and more specifically the leader should have foremost in their minds that me and my team exist to serve the function, business, or the organization which we are serving. So I think that's a very essential quality to have every time, having that quality and also displaying that quality in your behavior. Business orientation. I truly believe that a learning leader has to have an entrepreneur's mindset. It doesn't matter whether business is actually coming and asking to you that what's the return on the investments or the trading dollars we have made and all that. I think this should be hardwired to every learning leader that how this learning intervention is going to significantly add value to the organization business function which we are serving. So when in the times we live in, when the resources are getting harder to find, there's so much of crunch in the resources and all that. So first and foremost, every learning practitioner and more importantly, leaders who are leading learning functions should ask themselves that with this limited amount of resources, how can we ensure a disproportionate return on the investment which we are making in the trading dollars in terms of tangible business outcomes? So that's a business orientation. And that would only happen because when business first mindset is there, how do we ensure that whatever we do, everything which we are doing is leading to significant and meaningful business outcomes? Okay. Influence without authority. I mean, a learning leader will not have, authority of positions. All that. It's not going to work that way. So hence, your personal power, the way you influence people, the way you inspire people, including the businesses which you serve, would be a very, very, very critical leadership quality for you to inspire not only the businesses, but your team also looks up to you that, hey, we have a leader who truly can inspire and influence businesses, leadership around the organization, so on and so forth. Okay. So having the ability to deeply influence people who we work with is, I think, a very, very critical leadership quality in a learning leader. And then, now this is a very interesting piece. As a learning leader, I personally need to be extremely focused on what we are doing, with an eagle's eye on ensuring that it's getting designed the right way, which is going to lead to results for business. While executing the program, how do you ensure that you're reviewing this in a way that we don't miss a beat? Along with the focus, it's very interesting that with so much of uncertainty around us, things are moving, things are getting dynamic and all that, how we are also, while remaining focused, how we can be nimble-footed, we can be agile to ensure that we are factoring in certain things which are shifting in the environment. Some things may have moved. So how do we make sure that we are extremely focused on the way we conceptualize, design, and then deploy the intervention, but at the same time are willing to be flexible to incorporate, the changes which are happening in the environment, which could be tailwinds, which could be headwinds, but we must make sure that our programs are very robust, but at the same time, we are flexible enough in our minds that, hey, you know what, things can shift, and we should be able to very quickly adapt to that emergent realities and the new truths which are coming up. Okay, so these, according to me, are the leadership attributes which are extremely critical for the success of a learning leader. Now, coming to the next set, which is the functional skills, here also I've thought of putting into two broad buckets. One is of course, the broad functional skills which you require. And first and foremost is, as a learning leader, I must have a very strong and robust understanding of human resources. Now, why do I say that? I say this because just under learning, which is a sub-process under the human resource process, is like understanding only one leg of the elephant and not knowing how the other parts of the elephant look like. That's one. Second thing is that if I know the human resource process well, then I also know what are the inherent connections which could be made with learning, which is one of the sub-processes, with the other sub-processes, which could be performance management, which could be talent acquisition, which could be talent management, which could be compensation and benefits. So if I know the whole, then I also can appreciate the potential linkages which could be made with learning with the other parts of the human resource process. The second piece is business acumen. If I am in an organization, I must have a solid understanding of the business the organization is in. And even if I'm moving from one organization to another, which could be in different industries and all that, I must make sure that I very quickly understand the high level business, but also the nitty gritties of uh, acumen and what happens inside the business. Because if I don't have that understanding, I would be also failing in appreciating what are the potential pain points of business and how I can and my team can prioritize what issues and opportunities which business faces and ensure that all the interventions, all the focus and energy of the learning teams are getting focused on those most important issues and opportunities. Okay, so at a broad level, we must understand human resource and also have a solid understanding of the business we serve. Now, it's like what we call a T-shaped capabilities, right? So the T is the head of the T is the broad piece, which is human resources and business acumen, and the deep, which is actually the vertical side of T, which is the deep expertise, which I'm talking about, which I call learning practitioners skills portfolio. It's a portfolio of skills which every learning practitioner should have, and I strongly believe that as learning leaders, we must also have solid grasp of the important skills in this portfolio. Okay, so what are those skills? Let's look at it. Okay, it's like a toolbox. Okay, and and one may say that, hey, you know what, I am a leader of a learning team, so I have specialists who know these instruments in this toolbox very well. So why do I need to understand this? So my 2 cents of wisdom on this, which I have learned over being in learning functions for many, 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 many years, is unless I know each of the instruments in this toolbox, how do I ensure that a symphony happens with all these instruments playing together and also complementing each other? So, my recommendation, whether you are in the learning function today or you are planning to come into the learning function, and if you are aspiring to be a learning leader, you must have a nice understanding of each of the skills in this toolbox, what I call practitioner skills portfolio. Okay, so let's look at each one of them. The first is the context analysis. Now, what's the context? The context is where business is actually doing their day-to-day things and all that. Now, the elements of the context could be the culture of the organization, how learning is happening or not happening, what role managers are playing, how learning programs are deployed, what happens after the learning program, how much focus leadership has on learning. Does learning happen in fits and starts in very tactical way, or learning is a part of the strategic agenda of the organization? It's done with a lot of leadership energy and focus. So context analysis. So if I am, and particularly if I am an outside in perspective, I'm coming into an organization, I'm coming into a new industry, to be able to do this context analysis on the go, to be able to get a sense of the what's happening in and around the business, which I'm supposed to do the learning for, is a very, very important capability for a learning professional, and more importantly, of a learning leader. Because as a learning leader, your directions would ensure how the energy and the resources of your learning team is getting deployed. So those are very strategic choices you have to make as a role. So your quick understanding of the context will help you make very informed decisions and effective decisions. The second piece is a performance consultation. So what's a performance consultation? So this is actually engaging with business and functional leaders to scope out what's the high level issues and opportunities which they are facing. It's not training need analysis, which is a different, I would say a sub skill of performance consultation. This is it's so what the consultant means is to be able to understand and advise a person, right? So performance consultation is understanding the nuances of the business, what are the most important priorities of the business and function, business or function leaders and all that. And to be able to cull out the most important information, which then informs the training need analysis. So now through performance consultation and training need analysis, you have actually understood what's to be prioritized in terms of learning resourcing and all that. Now is the time to actually get into designing that learning intervention, and hence instructional design becomes a very, very important capability for learning professionals, and more importantly, learning leaders to know that. Now, one may once again say that, you know what, I employ a solid agency. I have two instructional designers in my team to do that. Why do I need to understand that? You need to understand that to guide the external agency who is going to design, or your instructional designers who are within the organization better. Because you would be then able to tell them, guide them in terms of what you want. How does the learning look like, at least at a high level? Of course, they are experts. They would be able to then create / curate the intervention as per your need. But if you know the fundamentals of instructional design well, you would be able to make the ask very sharply to the experts. So hence, instructional design becomes a very important item in the practitioner skills portfolio. Learning metrics and ROI. Now, this is linked to instructional design in the sense, while the design is getting prepared, robust learning metrics, what we call metrics that matter, needs to be incorporated in the design principles. However, learning metrics which measure tangible business outcomes would be a very, very, very critical part, because that's the language which business understands. So how learning intervention is demonstrating, realizing strong, meaningful, tangible business outcomes. So there comes the role of learning metrics, sharp metrics, which tells, okay, these are the outcomes which is coming out from this intervention. And of course, the related point, which is sort of an evergreen topic of interest for learning practitioners, is return on investment. So there could not be any ROI calculation without robust learning metrics. So hence, it's a very, very important capability for a learning leader to be able to advise and also guide people, help them, coach them, so that all learning practitioners, while building the intervention itself, they incorporate solid learning metrics which demonstrate meaningful business outcomes. Okay. Learning MIS and reporting. And once again, I stand a chance of, ridicule from many, many wise learning practitioners and leaders also, that, hey, why do I need to learn this and all that? Of course, we need to learn this, because in my experience, smart MIS and learning reporting to leadership is a great way to secure their sponsorship, their review time, and with that comes you are enhancing your chances of robust implementation many, many times over. Remember, it's very critical to show business learning reports the way they understand and they prefer business reports. And I think it's a very, very important skill to be able to conceptualize the dashboard, learning dashboard and reporting dashboard, and then being able to present that to leadership. So extremely important skill as per me. Now, in my experience, and I have not been a great, master of the skill myself. I learned it the hard way. The 5 skills, functional skills, which I have put above, along with the broad understanding of human resource, and then, of course, the commercial acumen related to the business, you may get all that. But if I fail as a learning leader to market the achievements of my team and how the learning and development team is helping transform the organization, helping the organization to execute the strategy, then I'm failing at my job as a leader. So marketing of learning, telling the world that how the learning and development intervention is helping business to be successful is a critical, and actually this is not a core learning skill. It's actually a marketing skill and a very, very, very important skill for a learning leader to be successful, and more importantly, make the team they're leading successful, make the learning agenda in the organization to be successful. So, and while I was doing this, and then I thought in our subsequent Learning at Exaltum episodes, why don't I share, single episodes on each of these elements, starting from context analysis to marketing of learning? So that's what we intend to do. Our subsequent next few webinars are actually going to be, dedicated to each of these portfolio skills. And the next week, hence, would be our session on context analysis. Uh, We may not be able to cover this in one episode. So as of now, I'm curating this as a title as an episode 1 of context analysis, which is the first of the skill sets in the learning practitioners portfolio of skills. Thank you very much for being in this episode of Learning at Exaltum. If you like this, don't forget to push the like signal out there. And also, really encourage you and recommend you subscribe to our channel, which is Learning at Exaltum. And look out for the next episode and many other episodes coming soon. Thank you, and see you soon in our next episode.